which can fly faster, a Vietnam War era F-4 Phantom, or a 21st century F-35 Lightning IIs. It's indeed the F-4 Phantom, which has a top speed of Mach 2.2 compared to the F-35 Lightning with a top speed of Mach 1.6. The Phantom can go 450 miles per hour faster, and this is not some exception. Fighter jets have not gotten faster in the past 50 years, and in some cases they have slowed down, counterintuitive on the surface, but it all makes sense if you're high, like a pilot, because it's not what you think. Military aircraft were first used in World War I for reconnaissance and observation, but almost immediately, enemy pilots began to attack each other with handguns and grenades. Not surprisingly, the advantages implicit in having high top speeds were quite clear. The faster aircraft could always attack or disengage from the slower one. The maximum speed of early World War I, aircraft averaged at approximately 110 miles per hour, and by the end of the war their speeds were up to 140 miles per hour. Just so you can appreciate what a significant factor aircraft speed was back in those days, when the British came out with the de Havilland Mosquito bomber in 1940, the Royal Air Force didn't even put guns on the aircraft, because it could cruise at such a high speed that was essentially immune against all of Luftwaffe's fighters. But it was during the Korean War, where jet aircraft were employed extensively for the first time. The maximum speeds of the CT-133 and MiG-15 were near Mach 0.9. Their best cruise speeds were also near Mach 0.9, and quite frequently these aircraft flew at their maximum speeds. The desire for speed continued after the Korean War. Around the same time, jet engines with operational afterburners became available, and the supersonic F-100 led in the era of Century Series fighters. The name Century Series stems from these fighters' designation numbers, which started at 100. The Europeans and Russians also developed supersonic aircraft of their own, like the Super Mr. B-2, Mirage 3, Lightning P-1, and MiG-19 and MiG-21, but these supersonic fighters had a totally new characteristic which had not been encountered previously. The subsonic fighters had a maximum speed that was very close to their best cruise speed, but supersonic aircraft had a maximum speed that was 50 to 100% greater than their best cruise speed because of afterburners. So hitting Mach 2 almost became a requirement. The Mach 2.8 speed of MiG-25 became the reason for justifying the need for a new fighter to the U.S. Congress in 1968 to 1970. But this is where intuition meets reality. The Vietnam War went on for 20 years. During that conflict, both the U.S. Air Force and Navy used various models of the F-4 Phantom, while the other side flew the MiG-21s, both of which had maximum speeds of Mach 2.2. But here's where things get interesting. Military analysts reviewed the flight data of more than 100,000 sorties flown by the Mach 2.2 American fighter bombers over North Vietnam. How many hours of flight combat time do you think was recorded at Mach 2.2, or Mach 2, or even Mach 1.8? The answer is 0. Not even 1 second of combat was flown at those speeds. A few minutes were flown at Mach 1.4, and remarkably few hours were flown at or above Mach 1.2. Remember, this is out of over 100,000 sorties over 20 years. So what was going on in combat that caused top speeds to remain completely unutilized? Turn rate is a vital parameter. When comparing air-to-air combat capabilities of different aircraft, the higher the turn rate, the more quickly an aircraft can change its heading, and being more maneuverable is desirable when you're chasing or are being chased. Because of this, pilots typically flew their aircraft at a speed that allowed for maximum turn rate. But maximizing the turn rate will inevitably drive down the speed to about Mach 0.7 until an aircraft can be designed with its turn rate maximized in the supersonic range. Air-to-air combat will occur at subsonic speeds. Now you might be thinking having a top speed of Mach 2.2 at least allows the aircraft to get to the combat zone quicker, and then it can slow down to engage. That's true, but not so fast. The maximum distance an airplane can travel from its base to accomplish an objective and return is known as combat radius, or combat range. Even when flying into the combat zone, supersonic speed is rarely advantageous. That's because flying supersonic consumes a lot of fuel. Northrop studied a multitude of intercept cases and found that speeds above Mach 1.1 were almost never helpful because they severely reduced the combat range. For example, for an F-4 Phantom II, increasing the run-out speed from subsonic to Mach 1.5.